Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and good morning. Welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View today. It's a glorious day when the likes of Chris Sutton manages to wind up the Orcs, isn't it? It's absolutely a beautiful day. It's cloudy outside, but you know what we mean. Um, Yesterday and last night, the club finally announced in public that they were going to allow the Green Brigade back into the stadium. Chris Sutton has taken to Twitter. We all know that he loves to wind them up, and we're going to read out some of the comments this morning because it is hilarious. Chris Sutton says the Green Brigade are back in to cheer Celtic to the title. He's well just putting a big fishing rod out with that, Chris. Put a massive, massive fishing rod out with that and see how many you could catch. Let's have a look at it. First up, to be fair, Desmond, he bribed the SFA on the split fixtures and then dropped this beaut. The man's no daft. And another little thing before you go. See if you add up the dates that Celtic play. Comes to 67. Just saying. SFA are in our back pocket. We've got to keep it going. We've got to keep it going, honestly. But honestly, go and check it out. If you add up the dates that Celtic play, um, it adds up to 67. Lol, desperate barsters letting thugs in who abused and threatened directors back in absolute desperation. No matter though, the team's pure shite. I love the fact that they criticise the Green Brigade and everything, but they forget about the masked hooligans that ran 3/4 of the length of the pitch during a derby game. Seems to forget, seem to just forget about it, don't they? They don't need the groin brigade. The officials have them covered. Of course they do. They're in their back pocket. Hopefully, they remember their Irish flags. No, I mean Scottish flags. No, the Palestinian flags. Oh, I'm confused. And there's another one. The Star Man will make this happen. Oh, he's someone that's needing issues, isn't he? And then they've got to have nobody's safe for the ridicule for that lot. And it's like nobody likes them. Sincerely hope that the club have made an agreement with the Green Brigade on understanding that they behave as other fans are expected to behave and not as an elite of individuals identified for doing criminal activity and ban them for life. But some singing is good. Jesus, but this is you always knew that this was going to happen because, yeah, Spider-Man and Smurfs. They had their own little superheroes dressed up. I mean, imagine going to the game dressed up as like with a Spider-Man mask, but he wears frilly knickers and stuff. Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Ay, ay, ay. You know, you know, this means we win our 3 games now, and we can't wait to see them rattled when it's the worst Celtic team in 20 years. Yes, the worst Celtic team in 20 years. Yes, with the 3 best players in the league out injured all season to limp over the line with a double. Simply the best. A little bit of a dig at when the fact that Celtic fans went in big numbers and took over their ground and sang their own anthem in their park and left them highly confused. Um, the officials aren't under the same threat without them, and Desmond knows that. Tell them to bring their football boots, they'll need it. They won't be cheering for Celtic players to win. They will be protesting and chanting about Palestine, etc. Nothing to do with football. You could always sing up to your knees in Fenian blood, I suppose. DC, RFC. I know. There's an awful lot of whataboutery goes on in Scottish football, and this is why I stay off of social media. Really, screenshot this, Chris, for the last game of the season when they're banned again for throwing sharks around the car park. I cannot wait. I honestly just want to win the league now, just to annoy them. Really, just to annoy them because we're going into the summer as double champions. The meltdown will be glorious. Oh, this is a cracker. The sectarian brigade, you mean? Bet this is a Rangers fan. Yep. it's, it's unbelievable, honestly. You've got to laugh. They don't realise how ridiculous they are. as a people. We are the people, aren't we? I'm surprised that they still turn up after 20 years of misery. 20 years of misery? How's it 20 years of misery? 20 years at the Green Brigade's been fantastic. Don't know, I could, first 15, fantastic. We've won how many titles? This guy's really, really confused this morning. And then the stench will be repulsive alongside the atmosphere. Well, at least we've not got rats running about the park and the stadium. You know, we all seen the viral video of the rat, living animal, a rat, yes, running about Ibrox Stadium in between the segregated area between fans. An actual rat. Any actual up front and the return of midfield and defence, defend the Green Brigade back. Well, we'll beat Falkirk. Or sack the board, abuse the team. Yep, the SPFL, the SFA will see to that. And anyway, good to see them back for the remaining games. Season ticket money due. Yes, someone that catches the irony. And then, as you expect, there's quite a lot of abuse. I'd actually forgot about the Gloon Platoon. Yeah, that's because you were too busy watching your own fans dress up with Spider-Man masks on and Smurfs, trying to create mayhem on the pitch. Now, where are we? Why is the screen not changing? There we go. Change it there. That's all done. So, yeah. An interesting fact that was pointed out on Facebook to me, if you add up all these dates, 25, 3, 10, 13 and 16, you get to 67. Completely meant by the SFA, of course, and the SPFL. They had to make sure that there was that little nod to the 1967 team as we charge on to win the title. 20 years of misery. It's bonkers, isn't it? 12 is the IQ between a lot of them. Scott says he's delighted the Green Brigade are back. Sounded positive at Thursday's meeting that they would be back, but the way they've been treated is shocking. Forget about all the good that they do. Yeah, they do a lot of good, but you have to also say that, you know, the fines, etc. I mean, Celtic still are on a watch list when it comes to UEFA. That if we let off any pyro within the stadium or an away stadium, we could be ending up with an away fan ban in a European context. And there's still the ongoing thing with the Scottish football authorities also. But anyway. What about getting Martinez and Scott Brown? Says John Pope. We'll leave the talk of managerial decisions until later on, as the guy upstairs starts cutting tiles. Hope that's not coming through. No, it doesn't sound like it is. Well done, George Campbell, for making the call to get them back. I suppose this had to be done as he takes the supporters' liaison's job. The Green Brigade just at the right time to roar on the boys and become champions. Some players haven't witnessed a full packed Green Brigade paradise, and I think that will help the fan. That will help the players. And will that give us the extra edge? Will it give the players the extra edge? I think the fact that Chris Sutton seems to believe that Celtic will go on and win the title now because the Green Brigade are back. I mean, he says that the Green Brigade are back to cheer in Celtic to win the title. Has the odds just swung in our favour? Whilst Hearts are completely up in arms about only having 6. Do you know the irony of it? I mean, we spoke about this last night. The fantastic irony is they're complaining about only having 600 fans at the final game of the season, and they think that they deserve to have more. It's complete karma, if you ask me. Complete karma. They're the ones. It's funny that the ones that it's a bit like Trump, isn't it? I mean, let's start a war and then we'll blame the people who were bombing and all the rest of it. Let's do a reduction in tickets. But when it comes to the big moment, when you want the majority of your fans to see something happen, the 600 decision comes back to bite you on the bum. Maybe what this will do going into next season, maybe it'll have clubs that will sit and go, right, okay, in case this scenario happens again, why don't we look at reintroducing more away fans? It can only be good for Scottish football. But they will say, nope, nope, we're happy with our 600 fans. Deal with it. Deal with it. That's what I'm saying. Absolutely deal with it. Of course, it helps. It unifies the stadium behind the players. How bothered are the Huns? Should tell you everything. It's absolutely a disgrace they were banned for so long in the first place. Ralph Ragnar for manager, massively underrated. The only one at Man United to ever call the Glazers out and get bounced. Well, I'm not too sure about that, but I see we've reached out to Hibs. Yeah, that's been kicking away in the background. I did add him to the list of players on the video that we did the other evening. We looked at his record, and he could be a good player. Is he being brought in for the long-term replacement of Callum McGregor? I think my biggest worry with bringing in players like that, the thing is, there's not a Scottish player that could come in and dominate the midfield the way that Callum and Scott Brown does. And I think that going forward over the next few years, I'm going to get my back sorted today, thank goodness. Going forward over the next few years, I don't think that you're going to see players that will come to Celtic and want to be at Celtic for 5, 6, 7 years. I think that those days in football terms may be coming to an end. Football players these days are they're more fluid on the fact that they'll move clubs more regular, and they're not afraid to move to different countries. It's not such a big deal now, especially with the amount of young Scottish lads that are going over to Italy and stuff. But looking forward to the summer, it's still going to be a massive, massive summer. No matter what happens, um, between now and the end of the season, we've still got a lot of big decisions to be made, and it's whether the players that come in can live up to the reputations. It's funny because even if we do win the title at this point, the next manager decision is as big as it was after we picked Ronnie Dyler. I mean, Ronnie Dyler came in and he still won the title at Celtic. He kept us going. Well, we're heading for the 9. If we do win this one, that will just reinvigorate the fans to want to go for a third 9 in a row. We're at the halfway point. If we win the title this year, that's it. It's here we go. Here we go to 9 in a row again. And if Celtic, I'm going to say this, and a lot of the opposing fans might think that I'm talking absolute nonsense, but I think if Celtic could get this appointment right and they back the manager, we could set ourselves up for the next 2 or 3 years. I don't care how good, how much. I mean, I know that Hearts are sitting with 10 million in the bank and they're going to invest, and they'll get into Europe next year. They'll give them some extra cash, and McInnes will still be there. But McInnes could go through the exact same scenario that he went through at Aberdeen. Chasing down Celtic, getting to cup finals, but getting beat by Celtic and not getting over the line. And I hope that happens, because Tommy Burns had to suffer a similar scenario back in the 1990s. Tommy Burns got Celtic so far and so far and so far. He finally did win a trophy with Celtic, but the league was the one that he always wanted. I hope that Derek McInnes is the modern day Tommy Burns. It's like he's just going to have Celtic were better than us on his gravestone. Simple as that. But we do digress. I think that if Celtic do get the appointment correct in the summer and they back the manager in the right way, and there's a lot of other things that need to be sorted out. Obviously, the B team scenario needs to be sorted out. We need to bring players in that are a little bit older, because there's far too many 16, 17-year-olds in the B team. We need to try and convince younger players. The big issue that Celtic has at the moment, that it cannot keep its younger players because they do not believe that there's a pathway into the first team. How are we meant to attract younger players from other clubs? And Celtic have made contact with players from academies and other clubs to try and bring them to Celtic, but they've said no, because they're happy enough with the training regime that they get at their current club, and they see a pathway. And this is what Celtic need to sort out. We need to sort out the pathway into the first team. And we have to have a manager that believes in a youth system to be able to do that. And we have to have a manager that can convince players, Whereas I think Brendan Rodgers' biggest issue was that he was unable to convince the player. You know, he was all about the football journey. Like, just you're going to have to go out on loan, and they're well, why? They believe that they're better than some of the first team players. And by the way, some of the players that were coming through at the time could possibly been better than some of the stars that we have here now that are on loan. And you know, they might have went elsewhere, and their career might have stalled a bit. But who says that would happen at Celtic? Don't know. It's an interesting one. Anyway, let's jump back into the comments. We now have the 12th man, which should take us to the title. Some of the new players will be blown away with the atmosphere, and that should take us to the next level. Baby, we are back. Hearts can't handle the league and a European game as well. Seen it before. That's why Hearts have done so well this season, is because they didn't have to focus on European football. I mean, we've seen the European hangover that Celtic have had in games in previous seasons. You know, it's always classed as. But there was a time where Celtic had a big enough squad where the European hangover thing in the squad rotation. This is why we need a really, really top manager. And I think maybe going for the Motherwell manager, I think that's way off the mark. I don't think that we will be going for him. I'm thinking now, when we see the decisions that seem to be getting made in the background, I still think that Robbie Keane is the one that Dermot Desmond will be making, that has made the phone call to. You know, I think that it won't be a case of, I think that there's maybe been work done in the background already. We don't know. We won't know for another month and a half. We're not going to have to wait long, that's for sure. Well done, the Green Brigade, in attending the B team match at Albion Rovers at the weekend. That helped pay the wages for Albion Rovers players. Shows great respect. I blame Brendan Nancy, I was going to call him. Wilfred Nancy and Brendan Rodgers, says Paul. But as you mentioned, how willing players are to move clubs now. So what value is pathway when players are so willing to jump for money? That's the problem. Pay them or lose them. I don't think it's. I think with Celtic, the issue is there's not many 17, 18, 19-year-olds getting a real good chance at playing first team football. And that's the issue. That's the years where the players disappear. You know, and players are thinking, well, 17, 18, 19, if they're good enough, they should be in the team. Martin O'Neill had about 5 or 6 youth players in the squad every single season. And he took them from the reserve league as it was then, and he brought them into first team training. And he integrated them into the team. Now, when Brendan Rodgers came into Celtic, we had a good first team, and he was all about winning titles, and he was all about winning trebles and setting records. And if you try to bring in a player that's not up the same level as the same as Moussa Dembele and things like that, he feared that he would be slated as a manager. He also claimed that he was a manager that could bring through youth system and bring through youth players. You have to have, but in his defence, Brendan Rodgers would say that, you know, come the end of the season, it was always after the split. He would bring in the youngsters, and you would think, oh, they're actually quite good. Do you know, there was various players over the years that were thinking, they're actually good. I hope they get a run in the team next season. And then what would happen? They would go away pre-season. They would have a pre-season, and Brendan Rodgers would go, no, we're going to send them Admiral Wacker. We're going to send them away somewhere that we're not even going to go and watch them. Do you know? There's too many times that we've heard over the years that younger players were saying that Celtic haven't even came and watched us. You know, nobody from Celtic has came and watched a game that I've played in a year. That there lies the problem. There then becomes a distrust with the younger player, because he's like, well, are Celtic really even bloody interested in me? Now, they may be getting reports sent back about the player, but it's shown us, with Martin O'Neill coming back to Celtic and actually physically going to games to look at players, managers need to do that. Managers need to put in the work as well. And I'm not saying that Brendan Rodgers didn't put in the work. He'll say that, look, I was in at Celtic Park at 7:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, and I was there till 8 o'clock at night. But that's all fine and dandy, Brendan. But do you know, there was quite a lot of players that you bought on stats, and it's been shown that bringing players in because they look good on a bit of a spreadsheet is not the best way to go. If it was good enough for Martin O'Neill 20 odd years ago, I think it's good enough for managers now. I mean, you look at other teams around Scotland, they seem to have a pathway for players to come in. And I just think that that's why Celtic get it so wrong just now and have done over the past couple of years. But we've got to digress. If Celtic win, it'll be like the penalty scored against the Rangers at Hampden. I'd love to see which Celtic win the title, but come on, mate, be realistic. I am being realistic. David, could feel it in here. Could feel it. It's if we win our home games, and we get, as long as we don't lose, I think if we win our home games, so that means beating Hearts, beating Rangers, beating Falkirk, as long as we don't get beat for Hibs and Motherwell, I still suggest that Celtic may be able to draw one game and still win the league. You never know. You never know. You've got to have hope. And plus, the fact that if you add up those dates, 25, 3, 10, 13 and 16, it hits 67. Ay, 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 ay. Let me just jump into some more of these. We won our only trip to Easter Road. Remember Calvin Miller played for us, very skinny, went away. And then, wait, cracking player, yes. And some people say that he's actually a better player than the players that we have at the team at the moment. But it is what it is. It is what it is, isn't it? Celtic need to adopt Barca or Hearts type academy. I can only tell you what I know from the Hearts Academy, having my cousin's son play for them, and it's far superior than Celtic. Far superior. And he's a wee fifer. Loan the youth players out instead of playing them in the Lowland League. Yeah, that's working well, Rab, isn't it? It's bonkers, the whole Lowland League thing. I mean, I know that they're playing against the whole idea of playing the Lowland League rather than having a reserve league is so that they could play against men. You know, they could make the jump from 16, 17 and then start playing against men. But when you're playing against substandard, not the level that you want to be playing at, I think that has a big effect on the young players. But anyway, we'll wait and see. I don't think the Ben Dokes are ever going to stay at Celtic, pathway or not. They're going to take the money at 16. Same with Liverpool and Chelsea's. That's just the landscape now. And I think that if we had... No, because Brendan Rodgers told Ben Doak that he was going to have to go out on loan. Now, when he went to Liverpool, he ended up going out on loan anyway. But I think you have to really have a manager that goes, you know what, you're not going to get 30 games a season, lad, but you might get 10 games this season. That's enough to make a younger player going, right, okay, that's fine. Because if they go to Liverpool and they train at Liverpool and they don't get any first games, they get into the put out on loan. They want first team action. You know, they want to have. They want to have. I bet there's a lot of grit with the younger players that have never won a medal with the first team at Celtic. They may have won stuff in the academy, okay? And I bet there's players that went, you know, I wish it had worked out at Celtic for me so I could have won something at Celtic. Because when it gets to the end of their career, I guarantee you that will be a regret of theirs. That will be a regret of theirs. But anyway. Actually tried that. Never give up. That's there for us. I think the league should be bigger, maybe 18 teams and play other twice, bring back the reserve league. Yes, Chris, that's something that I've spoke about. We seem to speak about this at the same time of year every year, and there's no appetite within it. The teams in the SPFL keep voting against increasing the league. Because they see it as they don't want to lose any money. They see it as, look, there's only a small pot of cash. If we increase the teams, that small pot of cash becomes even smaller. Now, when you see away games like Aberdeen. Even Aberdeen, where they can't fill their stadium against Celtic. You see Hibernian now saying that, reducing the away allocation has cost us in the region around about £200,000 a year. So Hibs have come out and said, we've made a mistake. At least we've finally got a club admitting that the lower allocation. Look, Rangers are never going to say, well, they managed to sell their tickets regardless how many Celtic fans are there or not. Hearts will say, well, we sell out our tickets, even though you see big empty spaces sometimes at the Celtic games. But it's good to see, but it's not good from, yeah, it is. It serves them right, especially when you've got Hearts moaning about 600 fans at the last game of the season. At least Hibs have come out and said that there has been a financial implication. So maybe we'll have to reverse this and give more tickets to the away allocation, because we've offered it to our home base fans, our own fans, and they're not taking the tickets up enough throughout the season. When you've got a chance to fill a stand twice, 4 times a season, it's a big chunk of money. 200 grand's not to be laughed at when it comes to Scottish football, but that is the whole issue of increasing the league as well. We need to beat Rangers and Hearts. They beat us at home earlier. Yep, that's true. Wage structure needs to be addressed. Don't know how. Doesn't matter. Transfer fees. We can't compete with wages. The issue with the club right now, and one of the things when the impending increase in season tickets, the majority of season tickets will go up to £700. The club will say that it is one of the things that they will say will be due to increased costs, and that increased cost is the wage structure. There's not many. I don't know how Celtic overcome this, especially during a year where our income has severely reduced. It does show you that Celtic do need to be in the Champions League on a year-to-year basis or fleece the fans for even more money. Under Nancy, so we've got them from being back. All the youth players who left are now most playing are shite teams. Celtic very seldom progress their academy players into the first team. That's why they bought in the first opportunity. Yeah, it never used to be like that though. And the thing is we now have an aging team of players that came through the academy. You've got your Kieran Tierney's 28, you've got Tony Rowson 27, you've got Callum McGregor 32, you've got Jamesy Forrest, who'll still be on crutches kicking about Celtic Park and getting picked by a manager in a few years' time. The conveyor belt that we once, it wasn't really a conveyor belt. Well, it kind of was. The early part of the 2000s, we had players that were, you only need 1 or 2 players a year. You don't need 5 or 6 coming through from an academy every year. You only need 1 or 2 players to make it, as they say. Recently, we've had Colby Donovan. I think he's going to be a fantastic player for Celtic. Dane Murray, a lot of fans still, they're unsure about Dane Murray, but given time, I think that young lad, having made the step up over the last 2 years, could show that he's a fantastic player for Celtic. Now, will he go down the same road as Stephen Welsh and Tony Ralston? Maybe, but you need players like your Stevie Welsh, your Tony Ralstons, to be in and around the club, because they know what the club means to them. Even your Luke McCowan coming to Celtic later on in life, big Celtic fan. When he signed for Celtic, you seen his face when he walked through the door at midnight onto the pitch. They put the lights back on for him, and he's like, yes. He's like he just dropped a dove in the 1990s. Absolutely loving life. Do you know what I mean? You need people like that. You need players to come through from the academy that are in and around the squad, so it keeps the soul of the club. Because if we lose, not everyone that comes through the academy has to be a Kieran Tierney and so for 25 million. That would be great. It would be fantastic. But the reality is that we need academy players to be coming through dribs and drabs, 1 or 2 a season, so that it keeps the history of the club alive, if you like. And not the history of the club, but it keeps the momentum going from homegrown talent. and that's what we need. But you know what Celtic are like. It'll take a lot of changing at Celtic Park. He went to pull 25 grand a week at 16. Celtic's not ever going to be able to do that. Yeah, and then he was in Seoul, wasn't he? But anyway, I don't think he was given 25 grand a week at his age. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think a lot of that speculation. Anyway, right, that is me done and dusted for this morning. It's all been about the fact that Chris Sutton has been winding up other fans. Chris Sutton believes that the Green Brigade are back to cheer Celtic onto the title. Will Celtic win the title this year? Well, there's one thing, we'll find out in the next month and a half. On that note, have an absolutely fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.